All right, good afternoon and welcome to our channel. My name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. And today I'd like to talk about homelessness nationwide. But I don't want to talk about or talk in terms of solutions. I think a better play here would be to talk about where all this money goes in each state when we're addressing the homeless crisis that a lot of the U.S. Is affected by. But first, I want to put a category system in place. Now, clearly, if I've been doing my job for 24, 25, 26 years, then I'd like for you guys to, for a moment, to think of homelessness in categories. And since I'm a Southerner, I'm going to compare homelessness to hurricanes. Category 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 being much of what you see in the thumbnail in this video. A 1 being people that might be in an apartment, can't afford it, could be out the door. I'm going to reveal things that I wouldn't do through my career. Now that I'm at the end of it and obviously retiring, I have a lot more platitude to really put the truth out there, and you're going to find the result in the amounts of money staggering, but the actual causes to be rather disturbing. Okay, and this is not something that I've really wanted to publish throughout all the years that I've been making these videos, and this channel is about 15 years old. Okay, it's as old as some of my cats. So Category 1 being a person that's in a home that could face imminent homelessness. Category 2, we now face homelessness. We're now surfing couches and the potential to move on to a homeless shelter. Category 3, disabled and homeless, likely in a shelter with no real capacity to recover from that. Okay. Category 4, drug addicted, alcohol addicted, or a combination of either. Or a combination also is a third factor, mental health issues. So it could be any one of those three factors. And then category 5 would be the same as category 4, drugs, alcohol, or mental health, but with the exclusionary fact that there's no desire to leave the street. Okay. So now that we made that distinction of categories and homelessness, and this is my own Pajita scale, you could say, and I think it's quite appropriate. I have the experience in the years and decades behind me to make this. So to put it in perspective, let's go and look. And I'm telling you, you're really going to want to hang around for this because it's going to explain a lot of why people like Joe Rogan, people like President Donald Trump, why the Democrats have their views, why Republicans have their views, the views that you guys have been spoon-fed through the news. But I'm going to show you a rather cold reality. One, like I said, most are unwilling to speak. And it's rather ideal for me, being I love to speak. So, national budget. During 2021, right after pandemic, we reached a fevered height at around $50 billion poured into homelessness. Okay. Clearly, pandemics lost jobs, people lost their way, lost their homes, but that's temporary homelessness, right? So categories 1s and 2s, you can recover from that. Now, let's look at a normal annual budget around $10 billion nationwide. Then I want to get a little bit deeper. Let's look at the most homeless state in America, California. And let's target 2 areas, San Francisco and Los Angeles. And let's actually understand what's happening and why the problem cannot be solved with money. Okay. So the first problem is the state of California, including the areas of San Francisco and LA, they're putting companies are having to pay every time a transaction happens in a store. The state's receiving money for this. That's not the problem. What's disturbing is the state of California spent $24 billion. Now, you understood that budget, right? That's half the national budget in 2021, when we're most extreme portion. Then we're looking at $10 million budget, right? As normal, that's 2.5 times the national budget for 2 geographical really areas. Not even in consideration all of California. We're talking about LA and San Francisco. So why is that? Because the highest representation of this, well, I'll tell you what, let's go a little further deeper into numbers, okay? So according to reporting, Okay, for LA and San Francisco. On average, it costs a year 50,000 to 160,000 to address. Now, keep in mind the word address homelessness. Do you know why it costs that? So here's where the evil comes in. Like I've told you about HUD and funding and how it all trickles down to the housing authority in the previous video. Let's talk about the trickle here. All that money gets collected, right? Goes to the state, state's throwing it there, and it's depending on nonprofits. You heard me right, nonprofits. These nonprofits get paid by the number of people that appear to be homeless. Okay. How do you keep a bunch of people on the block? So these nonprofits consumed a whopping $24 billion in the local areas of San Fran and LA. And they did this by achieving a certain drug level. Also by offering just enough services to never actually help anybody. We'll let you in the shelter, we'll kick you out. We'll bring you a free roll of socks, we'll bill back $1,000 for that. Under no stretch of the imagination does it cost anywhere near that to deal with homelessness. In fact, there is a portion where people kind of jumped in homelessness and then they were addressed and then they were quickly exited, which is appropriate. But by a large majority, it's in the interest of the extreme number of nonprofits. But let's look at what a nonprofit really is. Now, when a nonprofit receives $1 million and they only have an operable budget to profit at 10%, that's 100,000. When you give billions to just a handful of nonprofits in the LA and San Francisco area, what's 10% of $1 billion? Okay, so now you're starting to see this. We've got people running nonprofits on a 10-15% budget, which seems like it's small, that are insane. Now, in the secondary is, though the nonprofit can't directly profit from this, outside of that 10 or 15% they get to operate, there's nothing in there written that they can't, their friends, family, and constituents can't open up other organizations to supply all the things that the homeless need. And those companies are not nonprofits. So now you see a lot of nonprofits throughout LA and San Francisco are connected to entire families. You got mom, pa, grandma, the aunt, uncle, cousin, neighbors, everybody. Everybody's got a separate company supplying things to keep this going. Furthermore, even the police, by vested interest of the police locally for both, it's better to keep category 3, 4, and 5 in certain geographical areas that contain the disaster, and by virtue continue to feed the high numbers that are required by these nonprofits that are earning levels of money similar to massive corporations at this point. And the fact that they're grossing roughly $25 billion to the taxpayers of California is absurd. So we roll and we digress back. The first thing is these nonprofits, it would be in the interest of President Trump to make a visit to the state of California and have the Department of Justice investigate each and every one of these nonprofits, okay, along with their contractors they use, because this is where the large budget is going. What we're doing is, whether it's U.S. taxpayer money or it's California taxpayer money, the reality of it is these nonprofits are robbing both the state of California blind as well as our country in terms of this. Now you're understanding, when you look at the whole picture, you back away. You as a consumer watching this video, your concept is what you're being spoon-fed news, which is the homeless create a problem, they're using my tax dollars. But as we zoom out, we start to see the bigger issue here. The reason homelessness cannot be solved is because it's too profitable. Okay? It's too profitable for the ones that appear to be Christian and organized. Now, I'm not suggesting that any Christian or Christian organization is wrapped up in this, but I think you understand the moral here. A lot of them claim to be religious, when in fact they're not in any way, in my opinion, connected to any form of religion. They just simply say that they are. And so, by vested interest to keep the pyramid scam going through all these organizations in both Los Angeles It means there's a certain level of complicity through the police as well as the city. And the primary beneficiaries, which are the nonprofits, which now earn enough money to actually pretty much lobby even the city to keep and corral people enough to keep the headcount high enough. Because once you feed a monster enough money, it's going to want more. And so that doesn't, what are the homeless really getting out of this? Well, category 3, 4, and 5, they're getting a welfare check, maybe a dollar yoga mat and a free roll of socks for your $160,000 in money, maybe a few stale donated donuts at the shelter. That's what they're getting. Okay. They're not really getting anything. Same thing in San Francisco. They're taxing all the companies. A lot of you believe a lot of companies leave in California because of all the problems. Yeah, they're leaving because of homeless, but they're leaving because they're being taxed to death through every transaction throughout San Francisco to pay for what is essentially a pyramid scheme. And the scheme doesn't even actually house anybody. It partially worked when we went double to nothing through the pandemic, and it pretty much got the ones that were category 1 and 2s. As I had mentioned before, on a hurricane scale, as I like to use, your category 1s is those about to be homeless, those surfing couches or possibly staying overnight at shelters, and those in shelters that may be able to exit or possibly might not be able to. And then you get into more serious categories where we have mental health, severe mental health, alcohol and drugs, where we move in 4s and 5s. The best picture of all of it is they're doing well head counts out on category 3s, 4s, and 5s in LA and San Francisco. And in order to keep this money wheel running, they've got to make sure they do just enough to keep them on the sidewalk. And then by virtue of city, if you've got a mob of people, you can't control it, then you're trying to hide it on a number of streets. That's not including these RV parks. Now, when the system breaks and you get too greedy, that's where it no longer are they even able to help category 5, 4, and 3. We get into RVs, San Bernardino, because the rules allow a lot of RVs out there, and now there are millions of them. But these are people we could actually solve their homelessness and send them home. Okay. We could help them out in the state and just move them to help them with assistance to be able to afford to live in a state where it's more affordable. But instead of doing that, these nonprofits continue to evaporate $24 billion a year. And there's a handful of them that eat up most of it. Now that the scams run, every shady person out there that wants to run a 203C get a piece of the pie doing this game. And the goal here is we're not going to solve any housing. We'll just continue to supply dirty, clean needles and clean crack pipes and things of that nature, so we keep the head count high in the neighborhood. And then you're also here's a problem productively looking at homelessness out there. You're asking the same people that are receiving the funds to do the head count. Okay, that's a big problem. You cannot ask the prisoner to count the bank's money. Okay, so there's no verifiable way to actually prove the staggering numbers they're reporting. I mean, they literally name anybody, and because homeless do not carry, for large part, 3s, 4s, and 5s do not even carry a lot of identification, then it's whatever these teams report. The problem is it's in the counter interest of that, because, they're the ones that benefit. So the numbers keep growing. And so they offer good enough services to keep people in the corral. That's for sure. Okay. But it does not explain away 50,000 to 160,000 a year until you look at the chandeliers, the champagne, the Mercedes Benz, entire mafia families operating as mafias with 203Cs, going out and doing breathing checks on people. And of course, complicity in the city and police department. If you can't fix it, fuck it, we'll just contain it in one area, which further exasperates it, because if you keep the drug dealer and the tent and the junkies all in one area, then it's a perfect boiling pot for the nonprofit to continue to rob the taxpayers blind. And so you understand why President Trump is not wholly trying to address those of you that are really just having a fundamental issue at the moment. The 80-year-old lady in her car that's by incident lost her home and needs help. We're trying to, I believe what's happening through funding and why they're cutting it is because they're trying to shut down the scam. And then once we can clear out and start bankrupting all these nonprofits that are lining their pot, just kind of like an evangelist or selling snake oil, really. Look, for $24 billion, and when you look at the homeless numbers throughout California, there should almost every single person, considering the money being spent, they should all be in a new home at this point. Okay. But the reality of it is the nonprofits have now grown so fat they're choking on the money that they're getting. I mean, they're literally just choking. They're being able to buy basically downtown skyscrapers to operate. And of course, at the top tier, the nonprofits and the ones that claim to be religious. See, there's a difference. There are churches that serve the Lord, and there are places that claim to be religious and serve the devil. Okay, and these are the nonprofits and homeless shelters, Our Lady of whatever, but it isn't connected to any religion. Trust me. The only thing they're burning in there are satanic candles and lining their pockets. So you have homeless shelters, you have COC programs out there, continuum of care, and the whole goal behind that in California and many parts of the country is really just grand theft. You know, I've had to work through that system for thousands, tens of thousands of clients, and many which I was able to get it. The sad part was it literally would have taken my clients having me in their corner to get it. They had no real opportunity, no matter how they played the game, to win it on their own. The only way they could have gotten this stuff by themselves is if had they known somebody. It's that well rigged, okay? Otherwise, we'll give you a coupon book with a free cheeseburger, 3 $1 coupons, or bowl of socks, and wish you well. And that's being polite, because most COCs don't even do that much. So this is a marketable. We monetize homelessness, okay, and the nonprofits went from helping and caring to turning into a money a stream of revenue, and they did it by proxy, by family and friends being the individual contractors out of that supplied the dollar store socks for $487. You should see some of the invoices. And nobody's questioning this, because at the end of the day, when I say nobody, I don't mean the American public. Nobody's questioning it at the city and in the government up to this point until this administration, because we're trying to make a problem go away that nobody knows how to fix. And the reason the scam has run so long is because nobody really wants to get that involved. Okay. And they believe fundamentally these nonprofits know what they're doing. They don't. Their only goal is to open the doors, line people up, give out a little bit of free shit, and then send them on their way back to the drug dealer. And so we have this little line circle going on with this. So I employ the President of the United States, Department of Justice, and any other federal agency want to get involved in this, to please start investigating every single 403C throughout the state of California and other large cities to ensure absolute compliance. And I'd have you look into the contractors. How do you learn this kind of information? When you've been in the field a quarter of a century, I know a lot of things a lot of you guys don't. And let me tell you something. One thing I'll say is Catholic Charities is not complicit in this, but almost all the others are. Okay. The higher you get up in that nice $4 million building with a gymnasium and free showers for the homeless, look, they spend more money on the building than they do the people going in there to get a shower. And then they treat people that come in the building like they're at the county jail. Okay. They intentionally hire people that are subpar in the field of both social work and counseling, that don't even have the lowest understanding of how to actually process these people into the system. Look, my office is, again, hosted probably over 10,000 at this point. I've had homeless shelters that love to get $4, $5, $10 million, and then they hire caseworkers that just got off the felony bus from the prison out there, and the little girl don't know how to do anything. She's got 90 cases, and she's been there 4 years. Her office is only open 1 hour a day in the shelter. And I don't think to this day she still actually got anybody anything, because the only thing she knows how to do is snap her light switch on and shop for holiday gifts. I'm not joking about this. This is the tyranny. So if you're actually homeless, what you're facing is people that are willing to steal from you, steal your assistance. and they're lining their pockets with it. A deeper investigation would show that a lot of these nonprofits and the people that run them, their board of directors, or the ones driving around in ultra prime vehicles that California taxpayer, paid for. Same thing with the government. And so I think that a slew of paddy wagons lined up to address each one of these nonprofits to audit all their books would expose one. I would say the Madoff scam was Mickey Mouse compared to the one that's playing out in California. City government has a very clear choice. You can go down to Skid Row, you put up a fence, you fucking arrest everybody. Okay. If you out there getting high, you own drugs, you smoking crack, whatever, you can shut that shit down. And the easy way to shut this whole game down and stop taxing out the California taxpayer is start arresting people who commit crimes. Okay. It doesn't have to, you don't have to put them in jail, but here's the deal. If you're not going to accept social services and get sober, then you need to get the fuck out of California. Okay. Allowing people to simply do whatever they want. And so, again, my category 1 and category 2, those of you that are actually homeless without these type of problems, and even those that extend into mental health, those issues can be addressed. But if your only goal is to be a crack smoker, a hooker, or a gang member and involve yourself in the burning of money and be complicit also with the nonprofits that are burning billions of dollars every year, then it seems to me the biggest crumble in the room is going to be the people that accept these funds, don't disperse them, and create the larger problem. And then I would also request that the U.S. government not allow any nonprofit or any city government to do the headcounts for homeless. Man, you can't do that. You're cutting checks on the basis of the very people. If I knew I was going to earn money on the basis of how many heads I could count as homeless with virtually no evidence, then you see what the problem, the conflict is? You're letting these nonprofits literally write their own fucking check. You've got to be out your mind. This has to be addressed head on. You can't play city government and decide that something's a little too tough for you. Okay. It's time that the city of Los Angeles and its official suits and ties get out of your office, go do the head count. Okay. Because you're complicit in the largest U.S. fraud. And the reason it plays out better there is because homeless have learned there's more cheap trash to get between San Fran. Did you realize? Let me tell you something you guys don't know. San Francisco and LA combined have more homeless 403 nonprofits anywhere on the planet. You go to San Francisco, nobody can get a place to live, okay? Not even the homeless. But they've got more nonprofits to help the homeless per block than you got churches in the U.S., okay? None of them have achieved any point of being able to actually get people housing. What they've achieved is keeping people quite homeless, and to the tune of 50 to 160,000 or greater. And so when you zoom out, as I said, and you take this to a president, the only clear thing you can possibly see is this is a large scam, and it is. The problem is we have a mixture of actual people we can help. About 10 to 30% are really homeless and really helpable. The other 70%, this is a hustle, and we're allowing this to play out. So, the Secretary of State for the state of California, along with the Department of Justice, need to review all those applications, do an audit, and then start pulling up the prison buses. Okay. And the people that have enriched themselves, lying to the American public in terms of accepting federal funds and state funds, enriched themselves to the point these people are buying mansions in LA. They're buying whole lofts in San Francisco because they're running a nonprofit with 10 or 15% as the profitability of it. But when you speak in terms of billions and you consolidate these nonprofits, you see that 15% of $1 billion is a whole lot of fucking money. And nonprofits have gotten so greedy out there now, they'll run $1 billion in government funding and state funding and they have 3 employees. Divide those numbers. Let me pull up the old calculator. I'm a simple Louisiana man, now living in Houston the last 25 years. Let's do $1 billion on the calculator. Let me wind it up here. Let's see, it's 1 million, 10 million. All right, 1 billion. Now we're going to take that number and we're going to times it 15% and then equal. That's $15 million. Now let's divide that out 3. That's about $5 million an employee. So, nothing wrong with having a woman that doesn't even have a GED out of a bubblegum machine running your nonprofit. Her nonprofit is out of a PO box on Hollywood Avenue. She lives in a $2 million home, um, and she just runs reports on basically doing head counts of people that don't exist. So her wife, and probably her pet parrot are all getting a $5 million cut, about $1 billion, and there are lots of them doing this game. The other ones now, imagine we're feeding all this money in. Have you actually visited any of these agencies through San Francisco and Los Angeles? Now you'd think if you pour $24 billion into this, right? Now, since you're buying all this material and space to help the homeless, you would think these would be really fine and enriched places, right? They're not. They're all bizarre, but when you go into the actual front side, it reminds you of something that was built in about 1983. They barely even have a TV, a black and white TV in there. So there's zero interest in actually helping the homeless, whether you're in your category 1, 2, or 3. That's just incidentally, it can be helped, or you're a category 3, 4, or 5, drugs, alcohol, and madness, and there's just no helping you, or you refuse it. So you see, what we're doing is we have probably about 100 CEOs of nonprofits just going to have a fabulous Christmas because we're pouring in part of our national budget as well as the California taxpayers to line the pocket. It's very easy. You have the Salem witch trials. You pull these fucking people out of their mansions. You start identifying these 403Cs who run them. And why are they hiring? If you're being paid 20, 30 million dollars a year, why are you hiring people off Craigslist? Huh? Why are we hiring homeless people to operate the homeless shelter? And so where's all this money going? We're accepting donations, but didn't we already give you money? Why are you accepting 12 tons of clothing, but yet you're selling all the Gucci and Versace? It doesn't actually reach the homeless. You sell everything else, and then you keep the rags, the clothes with shit stains on it, and then you give it to the homeless. Now, you've made a claim on your taxes that you enriched the life of the homeless, but you haven't, have you? And that you sent people with PhDs and doctorates to go out and give all your care, love, and essence to the people on the streets. But the reality is, you hired a hooker on Craigslist to go out and probably sell crack to them. So let's be honest, And though those last few phrases there are a vivid example and probably, uh, you know, an exaggeration, I think you see the frustration in my voice. This is why President Trump, like many other presidents, do not want to support this shit anymore, because sometimes the scam is so well funded that the only way to kill this shit, unfortunately, is to kill the whole damn thing. And the best way to kill the middleman here is to strangle them by not giving them money. So if I had to bet big dollars on this deal, and what the president's view of this is, okay, the easiest way to shut down the scam is we will choke out the nonprofits by making it so unpleasant to get money that the ones that are actually there to do it and care will do it, and the rest of the frauds will have to move on. I guess they'll have to run a check cash and scam somewhere else. So if you don't believe me, guys, take the time to look. California it's a proving ground of things in terms of this. And unfortunately, sometimes the people and the reason they got themselves in trouble like this more than other states is because they tried to hide the problem. They also tried to take people that are excellent. A lot of them are good city leaders. They know what they're doing, but those city leaders thought they were the smartest person in the room. And then they went out and they consulted with a bunch of frauds. They went to the nonprofits asking how to run that. You cannot be the prison guard and then go to the inmate, unroll his door, and ask him, well, how much money would you like to make? And how can we fix the problem? Because the number one answer is always going to be, well, if you give us a lot of money, we will kick a wooden nickel to the homeless and keep the rest. That's the way the scam works. And so, since there's no real way to shut this down, we have no option at this point but to shut the whole thing down, reset it by basically bankrupting most of the COC program. So, the future of continuum of care programs, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and emergency housing vouchers, well, as according to this administration and in the future, they're going to be redesigning the system, and it's not including this. So, for most of you that have relied on your 15 to 20 different caseworkers and so on to operate under continuum of care programs, you might as well go ahead and sell your building. The game is up, the scam is done. Okay. And a lot of these nonprofits that lie in the streets of San Francisco and LA, you'll be going out of business. Okay. The American people, and as well as the American government's not going to continue to service what ultimately is the rape of the American dollar on the basis of headcounts of zombies on the sidewalk. I think that once we respend this, get the middleman out from under it, okay, along with indictments and limitations, then what will happen is the people that are actually really homeless that need temporary help will actually get it really quickly, and by people that are under under administrative rules that actually benefit them. In other words, we're going to spend $160,000, but it's going to be on proof and concept that you can demonstrate we're actually getting that person housing. That they're actually going to be able to successfully get out, be able to apply, be able to qualify, and then thus be able to utilize housing, not on the belief that, hey, here's a lot of money and it should work that way. So I'm sorry that I'm long-winded, but many of you know how I am. So I'm going to move into comments and we're going to finish up tonight. But I wanted to address this because if we're going to hand out guilt, shame, and everything else, then we might as well do it on the basis of what's really happening. And the last couple of videos have been a lot about that. I'm zooming out on these issues so you can see it from a perspective of a lawmaker, nonprofits, and others, so you can see the bigger picture. Okay. All right. Scrolling back. Lots of good comments tonight. Butter. Hello. Good afternoon. Jada Wooten. Eyeballs are on me, I suppose. Peace, y'all. Preppy Princess Jay is about to spill more, of course. The closer I get to clocking out after my retirement, the more bombshells I'm going to drop on this stuff. And it'll intensify all the way through the beginning of next year, because around January, the vast majority of my office will be closed. So everything that I've ever intended on saying about Section 8, housing, low-income housing, affordable housing, nonprofits, homeless shelters, all that's going to get levied. Okay. Including identifying my wish list on a lot of housing authorities and even HUD itself. It's a tell-all. It's a memoir of my entire career. And we're going to back that with information that may end up supporting or hurting certain individuals depending on how it's interpreted. But the truth is the truth. And that's going to be the news of the day. All right, moving on from there. Lorian. Hello, Jay. Hello. Good afternoon. I'm glad to have you here. Oh, by the way, we have a guest here. Now, I'm going to do this very gently. Many of you know about me and my cats, okay? Now, she has waited patiently at my side here. I'm a big pet fan. I've rescued cats for over 20 years. Many of my cats were seriously injured, hurt, or abused. This cat was not. Her name was Little Mama, and we called her Little Mama because she has an unusual coat, so I wanted to let you see her. She visits more often in my office area than my other cats. So, with no further ado, here is my secretary of the office, the Little Mama. Oh. See, she has a heart shape. So she's here tonight to visit with us. She is my big cuddler. She likes for me to open the window over my bed, where she perches over my head and watches to ensure that I have no problems from anybody. So she guards me at night by sitting on the windowsill just over my head. So I want to say hi to everybody. She has a sleepy eye as well. But I think that's probably the worst of her problems. So, but she's a good girl. She sits by me through almost every video. Y'all just don't realize it. All right. So, Lorian, Tammy Billy, I guess. Good afternoon. Christina, Good afternoon. Peace, y'all. The state of fruits and nuts ain't helping anyone. Oh, well, that's certainly true. We're handing out gift bags, basically. We're not fixing homelessness. We're seeing whether or not we can expand that. Well, it's going to be a rough year in 2026. For those of you that are experiencing uh, one time, like, a one time event or other issues related to your mental health or physical health, there's help for you. Okay. I will help you through our office for those that are interested. But if you're a serial voucher user, how Section 8 navigator, food stamp, you want to collect food stamp cards and benefits and all this other shit and welfare, and you want to win every card and so on, I'm not going to help those people. Okay. The criteria to meet homelessness and its programs mean that it's supposed to be on a temporary basis. This is not a lifetime. You cannot inherit, you cannot will these things out. And so um, there will be enough funding going in next year to help a great number of you guys. And unfortunately, if you're actively using drugs, you're a prostitute, gang member, you abuse children, animals, pets, things like that, um, my office will not help you. We will reject any attempt. Same goes with anything on the record to do with the use, manufacture of methamphetamine, drugs, things of that nature. Okay. So, we'll be screening on that to ensure that we have the right type of people that are receiving federal funds. Maybe California ought to consider that. If they're not too busy, maybe they should hire my office. So, digressing back to that, I've had several shelters dump all their caseload on me. And interesting enough, they didn't want to pay me what they were getting. They wanted to pay my office what they thought they could profit off the top of it. So it's always interesting the level of greed, and it doesn't seem to find a low enough point. All right, so let's get on to this. ZenCat, thank you for all you do. Well, thank you. Stephanie, hi, Jay. Hopra's homeless industrial complex. That could certainly be true, in my opinion. Queen forever. Well, we'll just call you Queen Fur. Wow, so sad. Well, yet sometimes that's how life is. Uh, Oding, Amba, I am the first one who called the end of the government shutting down on this show a couple days ago. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we're glad to have you back. Glad to have you back. Hopefully, visit again. Silver Fox. Streets are the same in Pennsylvania, so I'm glad it's not here. Well, that's true. And I appreciate you sharing your ideas about that. I certainly don't object. We certainly do have a problem nationwide. It isn't just California, though it's helpful in it by example to use California as an example of why we have a fundamental problem with the waste of federal dollars, whether it's housing or homelessness. Moving on from there, Christina Gannon, I called November 15th over the weekend and more ago. Okay, well, thank you for letting me know, Caroline. What do you think how the redistricting efforts will help things if Dems take the House? I'm not going to be answering any political questions, okay? I don't have any affiliation, and so I don't have any opinions either way. So if you guys have questions related to the politic part, I would say talk amongst yourself through the live chat. I don't really want to get involved in that. Joseph R., looks like your message was retracted. Christina Gannon, so far 2025 locally, 74 have died. Okay. Well, people die every minute. So that's the thing. You're dying the minute you're born. So I'm hoping to go out in an interesting way, but it could just be a massive heart attack. So people die all the time. Things happen. That's life. Just be happy you were born into a world without any defects so far. Subterra. I knew Jay was a cool human being. Well, golly, what'd you think I was for that? Baby girl is a little chihuahua. Oh, so you got your own little baby girl, little chihuahua, huh? The mama's still here. She's right there. Queen. Oh, never mind. I went through that one. Christina Ganna, Taco Bell dog, they are so sweet. Yes, they are. So I looked like all the comments. I just wanted to convey that message. Nothing more long-winded to add to that. That's what's going on with homeless funding. I hope to have more about that probably in a couple of days, as well as a new federal budget for next year. And so, last thing being said, we are maybe 24 hours from the president signing off on the government shutdown, which means we'll be a reopening, though we won't be able to access everything instantly. And it may have already been done while we've been in this video, or even while I was getting ready to make the video. But if the president signed off, then we're good to go. Funding will start to flow, and many of you will see your hopes and dreams come true Monday, maybe even over the next couple of days. And I'm looking forward to working with a lot of you as we move into the new year. I want it to be a happy time. I want very much to see a lot of you guys get housing, get your problem solved, see your family, love your pets, All right, that being said, I'm going to wrap it up. I've enjoyed it. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now. Baby girl.